Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Christopher's Entertainment Blog. I am your host, Chris. Welcome to my very first Godzilla marathon video, and this is for the original 1954 classic film Gojira, or in the American version, King of the Monsters as well. But I'm mainly going to be focusing on the original film Gojira. Came out in 1954. Later on, then in '55, we got the heavily edited version. This film, I have to say, is absolutely fantastic. This is the first film for the iconic monster Godzilla, and I loved this film growing up. And even though I was watching the Americanized version of it, I love the scenes with Godzilla. I fell in love with giant monsters, and mainly it was just Godzilla. But then later on down the line, you had other legendary monsters down the line that I really liked. But I always was a huge fan of Godzilla. There was just something about a giant walking dinosaur-like creature with spines that glowed, and he threw out fire. It was just something that was cool to me when I was a kid. So I'm really happy that these films are making a comeback nowadays. But this film, you have a lot of destruction. It's a very scary film in a way. I mean, you have this giant monster that comes out of the ocean and wreaks havoc on a city. And it shows the destruction of the city. And this is 1954. If you look at it now, it's just like, wow. I mean, it looks great, even for 1954. I mean, I think a lot of the scenes really hold up. I mean, there's some that don't. I mean, you can surely tell, if that it's a model or something. I have to say that a lot of the scenes of the destruction of Godzilla rampaging through the city is still quite good. Some of the buildings, the sound, I mean, it sounds amazing. It sounds like buildings being crushed. His fire sounds like fire coming out of his mouth. A lot of destruction. It's a very scary film. I mean, especially as a kid. I mean, you see this and you see people crying and running, and it's just like there's devastation going everywhere. It's just like, wow. I mean, this is actually kind of frightening. And Godzilla himself looks just just so frightening. I mean, even though he is like a guy in a suit, uh, as a kid growing up, you're like, wow, this monster looks insane. And with his teeth and the spines on his back, and he spits fire, very scary as a kid. Personally, I thought he was quite terrifying, even though eventually when started getting older, I actually didn't mind at all. I mean, I actually really liked Godzilla a lot. We see the destruction of the city. We see this, not just this destruction of the city. There is an underlying story, and really a hidden metaphor behind Godzilla, that it was really a metaphor for atomic weapons, awareness for atomic weapons, the destruction that atomic weapons can cause. And that's really what Godzilla is. The metaphor is he's the atomic bomb, and he's destroying the city. And then you see the aftermath of that, where like the people and the kids are radioactive, and there's a lot of people that, I mean, they're dead. I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands that were killed. The original 54 Godzilla really stood for something. It wasn't just a giant monster destroying things. I mean, even though that's what we see on screen and it's cool, but there was actually an underlying meaning to the actual film, is that the awareness of atomic weapons and how destructive that they can be, and how terrible that it can be. And then the whole thing with the oxygen destroyer, about the scientist not wanting to have his terrible invention get out there in the public, much like the atomic bomb, or like Oppenheimer would say, I am become death, I'm the destroyer of worlds, or whatever. you know, Very much like Serizawa, who didn't want the oxygen destroyer to get out into the world to become a weapon or a bomb or something terrible, even more than what it was, which is why he went to his death, because he didn't want to see that happen. There's a lot of underlying meaning to, atomic weapons and war and fighting in general, that look at the destruction that it causes in the end. So I think the original Gojira is a very powerful film, and a great film on its own, not just some giant monster running around, which is cool, but it is a really, really great film, and it's actually pretty well acted. I mean, there's some scenes that are a little bit not, uh, some of the actors are not the greatest. I mean, but you have a great actor in Takeshi Shimura, who I love from Seven Samurai and a lot of the Akira Kurosawa films. I mean, he was a great actor and beloved in Japan at the time. And you have Akira Takarada, who was very young in this, who is still around to this day, and that's great to see. And some of these other actors that were in this actually were in other Godzilla films later on down the line. So they became mainstays in this film genre, and they paved the way. Not only do we get great actors, we have a great score. That original iconic Godzilla score, the Godzilla March or whatever you hear at the beginning and throughout the film, is great. I mean, it brings me back to my childhood, listening to that all the time. So the score is great in this. It's like an upbeat type score, especially when you hear the military coming in and then they're chasing Godzilla away. Very cool stuff. Real quick though, to talk about the Americanized version. They had to bring in Raymond Burr, who was actually a really good actor, Raymond Burr. And I really liked Raymond Burr as a kid. He was quite popular in the United States. So when they brought this film over to the United States, Trans World released it, heavily edited it, and cut out some of the scenes to do with the underlying story of the nuclear weapons and destruction and this and that. And they even took out they put the ending with the destruction and they put that in the front, and they really rearranged some stuff, and I think they took out like 16 minutes worth of footage. Even though I grew up with the Americanized version, now when I look back on it, I feel like it was kind of a travesty that they had to do that. They could have just released the film, the Japanese film, like it is now. I mean, that's what you should watch. But back then it was just like, we're not going to release a straight Japanese film to the American audiences. They felt like they had to have something to draw the public in. So we're going to get this well-known American actor. Well, he was Canadian actually, but this well-known actor that everybody knows, Raymond Burr, let's put him in the film in these made up scenes and insert him forcefully into the movie, and have him try to connect with people about what was going on in the film, where he's going to narrate what's going on in the film. I don't mind the version King of the Monsters. It's actually pretty good, but I prefer the original Gojira with just the Japanese version, and that's it. I prefer all the Godzilla films to be the Japanese version personally, but I don't mind King of the Monsters. It's actually kind of cool in some ways. I just hated that they had to heavily edit a lot of the stuff out and then put in another actor to think that they had to connect with the public. I mean, they did that quite a lot back then. So the original design was supposed to be, I think, like the design, they were thinking about merging a whale and a gorilla or something together. I'm happy they didn't do that. He turned out amazing. I mean, Godzilla could have been a totally different character. Somehow worked out. I mean, they had his roar is just absolutely frightening. It sounds like a freight train, but it's actually like I think like a rubber glove with resin or something on it, and he's like they're like rubbing it down like a string of like a bass or something. So hey, it worked out. I mean, the roar is fantastic, and I truly truly love the original Gojira film. It's still, I think, it's not it's probably the best acted, I would say, out of all of them. But for favorites, I would probably say it's my third or fourth favorite out of all of them. Just a classic film. I just watched it again to do this review. It still holds up in my eyes. It's still fun, and Godzilla's still terrifying destruction. It's awesome. Hey guys, write in the comments what you feel about the film. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you didn't like about it, what you did like about it. Please write in the comments below. Also, I mean, when did you become a Godzilla fan? Please write down there in the comments. But that will do it for me for this first video, guys, for this new Godzilla marathon I'm going to do. But I will see you next time. Thanks a lot, guys. Take it easy.